It's our pleasure to sponsor this morning's keynote session, and I'm personally excited to have the privilege of introducing our keynote speaker. Expecting great things, I present to you a guy I'm honored to call my friend, Tom Adams.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you today. Thank you for the opportunity to share this moment. This is a particularly exciting moment for me, as if at all you looked at the book in the inside cover, the very first person I thank is Bob Johnson. And I thank Bob Johnson for this because 6 or 7 months ago, Bob called me and he said, "We're doing a conference and we want you to speak. And the focus of the conference is putting the U back in success." And at that point in time, I had sort of got this idea in my, not an idea, I've been looking at it for years, but this concept in my head that I've been studying and practicing and working on for a long time. And for some reason, Bob's call connected all the dots, and you have a book sitting in front of you today because of Bob Johnson. So Bob, thank you significantly for your role in this. Thank you. And I want to thank you for being here this morning. I know after a full conference day and whatever you did last night in downtown Disney, I expect that you're here, and I'm glad that you are here. But today is April Fool's Day. And in honor of that auspicious day, I thought I'd begin to show you some rather appropriate slides that really set that belief up. This is a torpedo. I don't know what the plan was, and I don't know what was going on when this all transpired, but yeah, foolish. This one, you think that a limo driver in any city would actually know the length of his vehicle and what the streets are like, but apparently this limo driver in San Francisco didn't quite get it. Neither did this kid. The kid was trying to climb the fence, obviously, and got caught up, and you can only imagine what his face looks like. This, I don't quite understand the plan here. There is a plan, because people just don't do illogical things on purpose, do they? They show up, and somehow this guy decides that he's going to put an entire truckload of lumber on the top of his Jetta. Despite how souped up the Jetta is, I don't think it was designed for that. The plan here was to go out for a wonderful, whatever that is, you know, when the kites are pulling you along, and I guess wasn't prepared for the shark to follow. I don't know about this one. Those of you in California, and I know more states than California have do not drive and do not text laws, but apparently this is not texting or driving. You know the hands-free thing? You know, you're not supposed to talk on your phone. The new one now is this. This is somehow not talking on your phone when your phone is down here, but I don't know what the plan is there. This one just astounds me. Why exactly is any architect, anyone putting in either of those two devices, see this as appropriate? I don't know. This guy thought he was going to sleep in the bed. You'll notice the incredible amount of tears that are flowing from him. Talk about a big baby, but the plan was, I guess, to just hang out on this couch, and it folded up on him. Mike Tyson, one of the brilliant philosophers of our age, said this: everybody's got plans until they get hit. Let that sink in. You know, the opponent to Mike Tyson gets in the ring and has got a game plan, knows where they're going, knows what they're doing. You're fully prepared to execute that plan until Tyson hits them. And then sort of the plan disappears, and then you just kind of wing it from there. And I think all of us have plans. I expect all of you in this room have plans for your business, for what you're going to accomplish with your business, how you're going to accomplish that. You've got the equipment, you've got the consoles, you've got the bins. I loved Gittimer talking about the bins yesterday. And if you grow enough, you have more trucks and you have more bins. And the whole point of having more trucks and more bins and is probably what you got into this game in the first place, was to build a business that gave you a life that you wanted. Is that not why you did it? You got in to create a life you wanted, and you build this thing. And as Angie said yesterday, she supports 30 families, was it? 30 families, and I expect all of you in this room don't just look after yourselves. You have a whole base of people you look after. And the plan is to grow something really cool, and it's a business that you might sell at some point, or you might pass on to your family, or whatever it is. There's a plan in place. But there are times in your life that you hit this roadblock, that you get hit, as Mike Tyson would say, with something that doesn't seem to align. It might be a change in the marketplace, it might be a change in the competitors, it might be a change in something, and you get to that point and you go, I'm not getting what I want. I'm not getting the result I want. And specifically in our business, it's all about getting new clients, isn't it? At the end of the day, your clients you have build your base and give you a certain amount of credibility now, but you got to grow that thing. You got to get it past where you are right now. And so something hits, and for some it's been the change in paper price, and that has created a hit. And others, it's been whatever it is, but something happens, and often it's at that point I get a call. And I get a call because I help people market themselves. And often at that point, the question I get in these calls is this: where and how do I find new clients? It's an appropriate question. Isn't that the question many of us are asking in the room? Where do I get new clients? How do I get them? Where do they come from? How do I find them so that I can turn them into clients? But attempting to not just be someone who throws back answers, I want to figure out where you are. I want to figure out and understand what's going on in your world, in your business, such that I understand why you're struggling to find new clients and why you're asking that question. And as I look at it, and as I look in this industry, and I have to tell you, those of you who might not know me, I have owned a shredding company. I have owned a records management company. So I'm not from the outside, I'm from the inside. I have sat at the table, and I've not just been the speaker, where I'm trying to learn how to build my business and how to get more clients. But over the last 10 years of working from the other side, where I'm trying to assess what's going on in the marketplace across the world, I start to discover this in the shredding industry, and it's been an interesting transition over the last 10 years. As more people have got into it and as more companies have evolved into it, things have happened. But here's one of the symptoms I see. We all look the same. We all look very much the same. So in an average big city, and if you're in this city, you'll know what average city I'm talking about, but that's not the point. The average point is, last week, I did an assessment of a relatively large city, not the biggest and not the smallest, but a relatively average city, and I searched for about 20 minutes online, in this case only online, to find a certain set of companies that fulfilled the shredding criteria. We're shredding and destruction service providers. And I looked for them, and after 15 minutes, I had 15 different companies. And within those companies, I looked at them, and what I discover is this: they all kind of look the same. Now, don't look at it from your eyes, because you look at these, if you're one of them, and you go, I look completely different. I look like I'm a completely different company. And yet when you really look at it through eyes that don't know you, who don't understand you, and who are just looking for a provider, these all look the same. Yes, they have different colors, and yes, they have different logos, and yes, ultimately a different phone number. But if you throw all these in a blender, blend them all up, pull different pieces of them out, and shove them back together again like a repuzzling effect, what you discover is every single one of these ultimately looks very similar. Now, when things look similar to a prospect, what do? They roll dice in their head. They create a subjective experience for themselves, which helps them to define and determine, who am I going to narrow my choice to? I looked at 15. Most clients look at 5 or 6. And whatever subjective criteria they use, they restructure in their heads who of the 15 they're going to pull. And they pull 3, 4, 5, sometimes 2, but they only pull a certain set. Why they pull those, we don't always know, because it's a subjective thing. and because we don't generate enough data generally in your own company, because we're B2B service companies that don't generate millions of hits, we can't quite generate why they're doing exactly what they're doing, but we know they do it. And they narrow that, and then they start in their heads and with you a comparative analysis, do they not? And they go, okay, who am I going to choose, and why am I going to choose this company, and what am I going to figure out? But what happens, and the symptom I see, is when you look like everybody else and a client views you like everybody else, then what's the only logical way that they can distinguish between us? Price. And what happens to price is the more they distinguish between us and the more competitive we become, the lower the price goes, correct? And all of us in this room understand the reality of continually lower pricing that keeps pushing us down. But the symptom is not lower pricing. That's the symptom. That's not the cause. The cause comes back to the fact we all look the same. And when we all look the same, the only criteria that people can measure us on is price. Lest you think that's the only symptom I'm seeing, there's more. A lot of you in this room never make that list, that top 3. You never get on that list because the subjective criteria that gets used leaves you invisible most of the time. And it's one thing not to get on the top 3 and be in the RFPs and find out later that some really cool company that you talked to 5 months ago now has gone with a completely different company, and you can't figure out why, because there's reasons for that. And in this case, and when you're invisible, and when you look like everybody else, and nobody's finding you, and nobody's choosing you, this is where most of us default. We default to hunt and chase mode. We default to that place where what we do is we go out and target someone, and then we go after them, and we encourage ourselves or our salespeople to pick up the phone and cold call or knock on doors or walk the plank or whatever they do. And most of your salespeople hate this, and I know you do because that's why you hired them. Am I correct yet? We hate cold calling. Why? Because it's unnatural and it forces us to go hunting and chasing all the time. And I suspect that you hate being hunted. Do you not? Do you not hate when somebody's hunting you? And I think what it starts doing is creating this positioning for you that's inevitably in your disfavor, not in your favor. So appropriately, given those few symptoms that I've just told you about, the question that you come to your day with, to your business with on a regular basis to support the plan that you have in place is, where and how do I find more new clients? And it's an appropriate question, but it's a question I believe that has costs. It has costs involved because the question forces you into a specific kind of answer. It forces you into a specific kind of behavior. I think it's the wrong question. And today, I want you to stop asking it, because I don't think it's helping you any. Yes, it supplies a client who in turn supplies enough revenue to keep the machine going, but I don't think it supplies you the kind of life you need and the kind of business success that you truly want, because there is a better way. And there is a better way because it's not just because nobody's doing it. There's lots of people doing it. They're just not telling you, because it's very effective. Successful people ask better questions. And so, because I know everyone in the room today is very successful, I suspect you're open and willing to look at a better question. And that question is this: how can I get more clients to find me? Don't you like that question? Yet we don't ask that one. We tend to stay stuck in, how do we find more clients? How do we find more clients? This question says, how can I get more of them to find me? How can I get them to come out of their position, raise their hand, call me on the phone, fill in my forms, make a beeline to me? Because that's the question that, if you're willing to answer that question, if you're truly willing to allow that question to get inside you and create an answer, that answer is going to provide a different level of success for you. See, on the one hand, if you keep asking the old question, where and how do I find more new clients, you keep having to fill that need. You keep having to go after it. The second question forces you into building a different kind of business and a different kind of personality within your business in order to make that happen. Those of you who ask the old question continually live in a how do I improve my hunting skills mentality. So you're constantly saying, how do I get those, and how do I improve my hunting, and how do I get better at that? Whereas if you're on the other side and you start asking the new question, how do I get clients to find me? What you're working on constantly is developing magnetism. Do you see the difference? So what you want to do is start developing magnetism so people start coming to you. And the more you develop your magnetism, the better that magnetism becomes, the stronger the magnetic force becomes, the less you need to improve your hunting strategy. Because at the end of the day, wouldn't you be one of these two? Which one are you going to be? Are you going to spend your time and energy figuring out how to hunt, or are you going to spend your time creating a system that actually brings people to you, brings prospects to you, and pulls them within your magnetic attraction machine that pulls them in? Which one do you want? I want the one on the right. I want the spider web. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. Now, I know some of you in this room will likely say, that won't work for me. I gotta hunt. 3 years from now, if you maintain that position, you're going to be back at this conference, wandering around looking for people and asking them, how do I hunt more effectively? I'm hungry. I'm still looking for food. But if you determine today that you're actually going to change your approach and you're going to start asking the question, how do I become more magnetic? How do I pull more clients to me? 3 years from now, you're going to have a nicer suite. It changes the rules because you start bringing clients to you and cool stuff happens. So if I could expand that question for you, and if I could expand it in your head a little bit, it's how can I create a powerful positioning, reputation, and a magnetic attraction method such that great clients seek me out wanting to do business with me? Let that settle in because it's a profound question if you're willing to answer it. If you're willing to answer it, and if you're willing to explore improving your magnetism, then this might actually be some of the result for you. If you develop magnetic attraction, you actually stand out from the lookalike crowd. So when everybody looks the same, if you're developing everybody else is out hunting, you're actually standing out as different. You might not be standing on your head, and you might not be wearing those clothes, but you stand out as different. You actually gain powerful competitive positioning. It's the Dr. Phil effect. Dr. Phil is a psychologist, or at least he claims to be, and most of the other psychologists claim that he is not truly a psychologist. They call him a former psychologist. But look at the positioning difference. The average psychologist makes $80,000 a year. Guess what Dr. Phil makes? $80 million. Now, it's not about the money, it's about the platform. It's about the positioning. And notice what Dr. Phil does. Dr. Phil has millions of people interested in his advice, interested in what he has to say, interested in helping him explore their inner psyche, where the average $80,000 is what doing mostly? Trying to hunt for clients. Dr. Phil could have a lineup from here till he dies every day at $10,000 an hour if he wanted, because he's created a different kind of machine for himself. He's magnetic, they're chasing. See the difference? You'd be chosen if you were attracting people, if you were developing your magnetism, you'd be chosen based on better criteria. Do you remember in high school? Do you remember in high school you bought $2 Chuck? For what reason? It had alcoholic content. That was the only reason. Right? You only bought it because there was alcohol in it. Now, those of you who are wine lovers, how do you buy wine? Do you buy it for the alcoholic content, or do you buy it for the taste? And if you're a really big-time wine lover, you're buying Screamin' Eagle. The best wine, and it actually, a 6-liter bottle of this just sold for $500,000 a couple of weeks ago at an auction in Napa for a 6-liter bottle of this. We get chosen based on different criteria when we're magnetic as opposed to chasing. There is no criteria when you're chasing. There's only when you're magnetic. I think you want to be Screamin' Eagle. If you're a single malt Scotch lover, I am. You actually, if you're magnetic, you're the Macallan versus the Speyburn. Where is he? What do you think?
I don't drink.
You don't drink, so it doesn't matter. If you're magnetic, you create an unfair competitive advantage. Isn't it cool when you're magnetic that you have like a dominant status? You're an NFL team playing a high school team and you're winning all the time. That's the kind of business I prefer to be in, don't you? Yes, I know you got competitors, and yes, but I want you to change the rules, and I want you to be the kind of company that has this unfair competitive advantage. You're the sumo wrestler to the kid, and no matter what the kid does, you don't even have to worry about it. The kid can do anything, and you just stand there, right? Because you've got a different set of rules you're playing by. And the problem is most of us are playing with the wrong set of rules. We're playing the old rules instead of the new rules. And this is one I love. This is a Mac line. I mean, it's an iPad line in San Francisco, lined up for days to be a part of the next iPad. And a lineup is created at Apple because they have created for themselves a magnetic effect. There's something powerful about what happens when Apple says we're launching. And why do people line up for days and sleep overnight to be the first in line to get that thing? You can get it 2 days later and walk in, but people line up for it. Why? There's this magnetic appeal to it. There's something powerful about that approach, and I want you to get that one. So the question again is, how can I create a powerful positioning, reputation, and magnetic attraction method so that great clients seek me out voluntarily? They come to me because of who I am and what I do. So the question becomes, how do we do that, right? How do we make that happen? And I think, based on 30 years of trying to figure this out and studying it and understanding it, years ago I was a church minister. I came out of seminary and started as a church minister when I was 20, 21. And I did that for a while, and I realized it wasn't for me because I didn't like the collar. I preferred ties, and they wanted me to be in a collar, and I liked the tie, and it didn't work. And then I left that and went into menswear. See the connection? There is none. Cloth, I often say. But the connection is only that my grandfather and my dad were ministers, and my other grandfather had a menswear store, and I loved being in his menswear store, and I loved menswear, and I loved suits, and I loved clothing. And I built a seven-store menswear chain, and I've done a lot of stuff since then. But over the last 30 years, I've been struggling to understand how to differentiate myself in the marketplace and how to differentiate the companies that I built in the marketplace. And the secret sauce that I have discovered after all this time is actually easier than I thought it would be. And it's this, it's you. You. You as an owner, you as an operator, you as somebody running a business, you're actually the secret sauce in all this. You are and can be the iconic, magnetic, visible marketing logo for your business. You can be the logo. In fact, I believe you are the logo, hence the title of my book. And it's figurative in a way. It's not completely figurative, but it is in a way. And my website says Flourish Press. It has my corporate logo on it, but this is how I want you to think about it. How do I become the logo for my business? How do I take on that role of the logo in my business? Like him. Don't you think he's proven something to us? You don't have to like him. You don't have to agree with him. You don't have to respect him. But you got to realize that Trump has built a worldwide dominant company in the industry that spans all kinds of industries now based on the iconic power of his presence. So is he now. Mark Cuban, who owns the Dallas Mavericks and built broadcast.com and has done an incredible amount of work now, is on Shark Tank. If you watch Shark Tank, great show, fabulous show to watch. But Mark Cuban has established himself as an iconic marketing presence in his world and in his business. And you can't doubt the power of her. Oprah has created a monstrous business out of her iconic presence. And her iconic presence is powerful, so powerful that the OWN network is tanking. And what's Oprah have to do to make it work? She has to come back. She has to do more shows, and she has to put her face on. Because the power of the OWN network, that large business, that multi-million, billion-dollar, whatever it is, business, is actually backed on her as an individual, not her as a corporation. That doesn't negate the fact that there's huge amount of corporate infrastructure to support that. I'm not saying that. It's impossible to do what we do without our people. But someone like Oprah actually fronts the whole thing and gives it power and resonance. George Foreman. How many of you have a George Foreman grill? Ray Berry. You got to have a George Foreman grill. All right. You know you're a redneck if. Every room, and close to the street too. And if you're honest, these are big companies, these are big corporate people who have become the iconic presence for their business. And I think sometimes as small business owners, we tend to think that this is not us. In reality, it is us, because these guys were all us a number of years ago. They were all us in a different way. And yet, somewhere along the line, they began to realize that their own presence had a significant impact on what was happening in their business. Now, I believe there's really cool reasons to do this right now for yourself. It's not just sort of a haphazard idea. That the timing is right in our society and in our social structure to actually make this happen. And I've got 4 reasons that I think you should be aware of, because I believe they help you to understand why this makes sense. The first reason is the rage against the 1%. Now, the point is not that the Occupy movement was right or wrong. It's not that. I want you to look at the underlying social thing that's happening, is that society in general has become angry with the big corporation, the huge corporation in the sky. Robert Scoble and Shell Israel said in their book, corporations are perceived as monoliths without souls. In short, there's no humanity. And what do you think people today are fighting against? They're fighting against the people who skim off the top and take, the corporate greed that seems evident in the corporate monoliths that skims it off the top to their own good while the rest of the world suffers. And I'm not defending or proposing a political position. I'm saying look at the underlying societal impact that's having. And what it's showing to me is that people want to see humanity. They don't want to see corporate walls. A Rasmussen poll found that only 22% of Americans give CEOs a favorable rating. Guess what they do for small business owners? 92%. Do you think there's an imbalance there? Who do you want to be to your community? Do you want to be in the 92% or in the 22%? I'm going for 92%. Why are you pretending to be huge when you're not? It makes no sense. So many people I talk to, and I ask them what they're doing with their marketing, go, I'm trying to be big. And I'm going, you're an idiot. You're not supposed to be big, be small. That's what your clients want. If you want to be magnetic and you want to stand out in the world, quit trying to be the big dog when you're already a small dog. Jeffrey Gitomer said yesterday, don't forget, everybody knows everything about you already. And if you're pretending to be this monstrous corporation when you're a 2-man and a truck deal, it's you and your wife in a truck and 7 bins, tell them that. Man, everybody I know wants to support the little guy. Everybody I know wants to help people move themselves up. That's exciting. People love to be part of something that's big and that's growing. We all love that. Why are you pretending to be huge? You don't need to be. Second reason I think becoming the iconic logo for your business is so imperative right now is that it's now a Facebook world. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because Jeffrey spent a lot of time on it yesterday, but we crave connection. Your prospects crave connection. Your prospects love to be connected. And that's why Facebook and social media is growing so rapidly. This is not an indication whether I think you should market on Facebook. It's only an indication of the societal structure in play that you should be very aware of as a business owner. Neurofocus is a company that neurologically studies what happens in the brain when people shop, when they do things, and they put all these things on people's head and shave their heads and figure out what's triggering in their brain. And they do it when they're watching Facebook or when they're on Facebook. And the emotional triggers are popping like crazy. And you know why? It's this. A.K. Pradeep, who's the owner of Neurofocus, said the dominant feature of Facebook is the human face. The face is what triggers the emotion. So it's faces that we want connection to. It's people. It's not corporate facade. It's people. It's people that people are drawn to. It's people that we like to look at. And when you look at other people, that makes connection, that creates emotional effect. And as you learned yesterday, we start with emotion and then justify with logic. And here's the question. I'm going to tell you a story first. Gary Vaynerchuk, anybody heard of him? Anybody a wine lover? Gary Vaynerchuk grows up in his parents' wine and liquor store in New Jersey. It's a small wine and liquor store, does sub $1 million in revenue, so pretty decent for an established wine and liquor store. Gary grows up in the store stocking shelves, putting things away, and he's a kid of the internet. He's younger than me, so I know he's definitely a kid of the internet. And so as he learns this, he hears people talking about wines. He's starting to understand it, and he's kind of got this sponge of a mind. And Gary Vaynerchuk, by the time he hits 18, his dad allows him to help starting with sales. And Gary says, I'm going to do something really kind of crazy. I'm going to set up a video camera because YouTube's starting to take place. And Gary sets up a video camera in the basement and starts with all the stuff he's learned. He starts comparing wines off the shelf upstairs. And the wine is actually, he tastes it, and he talks about it in a more teenager kind of way. And he talks about the nuances of wine outside of the old kind of talk, but he puts his face to it. Gary takes that video, and early on, 2 and 3 people are watching it, to the point where there's millions of people watching that video on a daily basis, and he does it every single day. And he puts his face in front of his audience, and eventually the sub $1 million store becomes a $20 million wine and liquor store, where most of the profits are going actually out online. The store serves as the front to become an e-commerce marketing machine, and it's called Wine Library TV. And Gary Vaynerchuk completely blows up the model. But why does he blow it up? Because anybody can sell wine out of a store, but no one can sell it with a face. And nobody was. Now there's lots of copycats, but what Gary Vaynerchuk did was prove to us that it's possible when you put your face there. And this is my question to you. Why are you guys hiding your faces? I look at all your sites, and we do that regularly, and we take pictures of your sites, and many of you have probably received letters from me saying, you need a better site. And the thing that I think you miss is you go, we're not to be big, so let's not put our picture, that makes us look small. And I've already told you why you're trying not to be small. Quit trying not to be, start being who you are, and put your face on there. If you can do one thing, go home and tell your web person, put my face on my website quick. Quick. It allows you to stand out. Next, we want and need heroes. Our world's begging for heroes. Apparently, the politicians have decided they're not in the hero business anymore. They've quit being heroes. Yes, the firefighters and those who put their lives on the line, and the military who put their life on the line, heroes definitely. But many of us also need heroes who do stuff in ordinary life. And do you know that everyone sitting in this room is a hero? You're heroes. Christopher Reeve, who was truly someone who exhibited hero status after he broke his neck, said a hero is an ordinary person who finds the strength to persevere and endure in spite of overwhelming obstacles. If you're in a business today, you've got a 50-50 shot of making it. How many of you in this room have been in business over 5 years? Stand up. Stand up. All right, for all of those of you who are standing, you've made it. You're a hero. Let's clap for you. Do you know what's so cool? The people who are sitting down, let's clap for them too, because they're gonna make it. 5 years, that's all you have to get to. So the Small Business Administration, the statistical people have done all this research, and the people who do investment in businesses, and the numbers, it's a chart, and so I didn't want to get to the chart, but the number they say seems to be important and appropriate is if you get to 5 years and you make it, you're good. You're part of the good 50%. But 50% of all businesses that start fail within 5 years. So that means to me something pretty cool. This is crazy to be an entrepreneur, right? 90% of the people in the world aren't entrepreneurs. 90% of the people in the world don't want to shoulder the burden of staffing other people, helping feed their families, helping create something cool. And every time you grow your shred business, you throw some money into Canada to help those guys in Canada who build shred trucks and bins. Because there's a lot of them up there. You're welcome, Canadians. But the cool part is you're heroes. Like, let that sink in. That's so cool. Your prospects, and I believe this so strongly, your prospects want to connect to a story bigger than their own. You've got a great story to tell, the story of your startup. And yet when I look in your websites, not only do I not see your face, I don't see your story. And in the research we do, because we manage websites on an ongoing basis, in the research we do, we watch the statistics. And what we see is really interesting, is they come and look at your homepage, they come and look at a service page, but really the second most traffic area of any website is the About Us page. And there's nothing there. It's basically big corporate blabber. That's all it is. It's big corporate blabber. And it's more appropriate there, I think, to represent who you are, tell your real story, tell who you are. We all know this guy, and cheers to the sponsor, Lewis, and the sponsors this morning. But you know, Norm's part of this industry, and Norm and Lewis together built an incredibly cool business. But honestly, and Lewis will very clearly assert this, that Norm was the face of the business out in the world. Now, building a business is heroic in and of itself, but the point of being a hero is not just to build the business and gain all that knowledge, it's to share it with others. That's when it gets really cool. And what Norm has done as an example to us, I think, is they built this really cool business in city storage, and the work that Lewis and he did together to build that was they built a really cool company, an incredibly cool company. But what was so cool about Norm as the logo out there representing the business is he went to Inc. and he started talking about it to others, and he talked about his store, and he talked about the struggles and failures and learning and all the stuff that happened. And every month we got to learn with him. How many of you have read his article over the years? It's powerful stuff, and we've learned about it over the years, and we've been a part of their story. And guess what? Do you think that has made City Storage, has given and brought City Storage enhanced value in any way? Absolutely. Why are you hiding your greatness? What you do every day is great. Don't hide it. Don't stop sharing the story. Make it happen. Final reason I think becoming the iconic marketing presence in your business is this. It's what I call small town values. People want small town values. They want to go back to that. Yes, we're not going back to sort of, the old traditional way of thinking. With open minds, we still want small town values. We still want to connect with the people that we work with. We still want them to know us. Living in a small town, I knew everybody, and everybody knew me. And I think the important piece of this is that people want to be known. It's not just about knowing you, it's that people want to be known. Brian Casey is the president of DePauw University, south of Indianapolis. Brian Casey runs a small university by standards, but it's 2,500 students, and it's around 500 faculty and staff. And here's the interesting thing that Brian has done to actually create a small town feel. He knows everybody's name. So much so, yes, he might have an incredibly good brain and an incredibly good memory, but he's actually worked hard to understand and know who every person is on that campus. And he actually knows their name. And when he sees them as he's walking through campus, he says hello to them by name. And what happens is it changes the rules. So what's happening now at DePauw University, which is a small kind of somewhat elite university, is the energy around there is growing and the magnetic attraction force field is taken over. And people are just compelled to come there, and students love it, and the money's flowing in from the alumni, and great stuff is happening there because of that. But we all want, and your prospects and your clients want you to be Sam, if you remember Cheers. Everybody wants to go somewhere where somebody knows their name. And one of the cool advantages of becoming more a person as the front of your business instead of a logo or a brand-based marketing orientation as the front end of your business is that people connect. And when connection happens, attraction happens. So my question to you is, how are you engaging small town values in your business? How are you bringing those to life? Lest you want to go without examples, I've got some for you. And I think these are some other cool examples. And I agree, few things are harder than the annoyance of a good example, but I'm going to give them to you anyways. There are, in our world, numerous companies that are named after their founders or owners. And you know some of them. Tell me how many of these you know. Top left. Matt Drudge, which is Drudge Report. Next, and this is for those of you who are on the politically opposite side. Who's that? Aaron Huffington. Huffington, right. Next. Steve Forbes. Forbes is the company. Who's the next one? Who? Ralph Lauren. Fashion. Who's the next one? Bottom left. You can't read it. I made it hard to read, but if you're an audiophile, Bang & Olufsen. It's actually Olufsen and Bang, but named differently, but that's Bang & Olufsen. Who's the next one? James Dyson, the vacuum cleaner. Who's the final one? This is for the Italians in the room. That's Mr. Ferrari. Now, the interesting thing, and the reason I put that up there is a plethora, I love that word, plethora of luxury brands in the world that are actually named after their owner. And that iconic presence, really, there's something about when you put your name on the door, you show up in a big way because it's your name. You have no choice but to show up. You can't hide behind it. Your name's on the door, you show up. And you think about many of the brands. When you think of cars, Bentley is somebody's name. Rolls-Royce is somebody's name. Lamborghini is somebody's name. When you think of eyewear, Bosch & Lomb is somebody's name. When you think of lenses, Carl Zeiss. Think of so many companies in the world that are considered premium and elite. And what do you see happening? You see founders' names on them. Anybody watch American Idol? I know most of you don't, and I know after Jeffrey Gitomer told you you're idiots if you do. I realize it's hard to admit, but I watch American Idol. What was really interesting the other night is that Tommy Hilfiger, the huge brand, not so much a luxury brand, but sort of an upmarket main level brand, actually showing up personally on American Idol to help the contestants and put his face on the camera. Why do you think he's doing that? He doesn't have to. He's not required to. But do you think there's motivation behind a billion-dollar company in the world where the owner of his own brand name is actually physically becoming present? Do you think there's a clue there? And that's a big one. They're showing up because there's a reason to. Can you tie your personal name to your marketing? I realize everyone in the room can't go out and change their company name from Shred whatever to your name. It just doesn't make sense. But can you tie it in another way? Do you have the Steve Richards stamp of approval? Do you have the Dave Herrick guarantee? Can you put your name on something such that you tie your personal name to something in your business that sets it apart? The next example is that of a spokesperson. And a spokesperson is someone I think we're more familiar with. And those of you in the room who have some age to you will understand who the first one is at the bottom, who revived Chrysler as the iconic spokesperson on behalf of the company. Dave Thomas from Wendy's, we got to know him, and what did we do? We got to love him, right? He's somebody that we love. He's a lovable dad kind. And then Victor Kayem, he liked it so much he bought it, right? Remember that? Canadians in the room, why buy a mattress anywhere else? Christine McGee. How many of you know Christine McGee? Where's my Canadians? Yes. And Frank Buckley has, and if you're ever in Canada, I'm encouraging you to do this. There's a thing called Buckley's Mixture. And Buckley's Mixture is the most god-awful tasting stuff you can possibly imagine. It's wretched beyond belief. And Frank Buckley, the CEO of that company, would get on TV and would basically say, it tastes awful and it works. It tastes awful and it works. And if you're ever in Canada, get yourself a small bottle of it, take it, it clears your cold, it cures you somehow, it kills you probably. In every city, you have these. In San Diego, we have Jerry Navarra. Jerry Navarra runs Jerome's, which is a furniture company. And Jerry is on TV, he's on radio, he's in print, he's everywhere as the iconic spokesperson for his business. And he shows up and he's always there. And what happens? You connect. And when people spend millions of dollars in advertising, do you think they have motivation for it? And do you think they've proven something works? And in Jerry's case, it's a proven formula. There's lots of other furniture companies that try and run ads, but nobody has the emotional connect. Why? Because we already understand faces create emotional connection. Showing furniture does not. If you've been online and ever been on YouTube, you might have heard of this guy. Tom Dixon is the CEO of Blendtec. Blendtec makes the sort of high-end blenders that cost $400 to buy, but they're great. I love them. I got sucked in. But he's done an entire video series on YouTube called Will It Blend? He's only a YouTube spokesperson. But he's created this powerful presence for his company in the marketplace because he blends everything from iPhone 4Ss to iPads to whatever's hot in the news, he blends it. And it's really kind of a cool thing, but he's created this huge following as a result of his Will It Blend. But what he's doing is he's out there in front. So my question to you is, how can you become more visible as the face of your business? How can you become more of a spokesperson for your people? How can you become more of a spokesperson for your shredding and destruction services and put your face? I am not in any way suggesting you buy television spots and air commercials and go in the newspaper. The example is not you. The example is meant to serve as a principle to you. In fact, if you're doing that, you're probably crazy. You're spending too much money because you're not reaching that kind of an audience unless you went to the personal one yesterday morning on how to do residential shredding. The third one, I think, which is a really powerful alternative in our industry, and this one has a lot of intrinsic power to it that most other people never see, and that's to become the expert. It's to become the Mr. Miyagi and the Yoda to your constituents, to your prospects, and to give yourself to them as an expert, as a guide, as someone to help them, as someone to provide value. Robert Cialdini, who wrote the seminal work on why people do what they do and influence, the book is called Influence, and if you want to read a powerful book, get that one, Robert Cialdini's book called Influence. He says, we believe we'll be better off if we follow the lead of legitimate experts because they have greater knowledge and expertise in a certain domain than we do. And if you can allow your presence to become known as the expert, what you start to do is gain traction as the logo for your business because people automatically choose to follow you. There is a deferred sense of attraction and magnetic attraction that comes when you become the expert. Here's the problem. Many of you in the room today have your CSDS. Many in the room have been in this industry a long time. If you read Malcolm Gladwell's book, you have to accumulate 10,000 hours of knowledge to be considered an expert. Many of you in this room are experts by a long shot. But here's the problem. A, you don't share it. And B, you only share it once you get a client, once you're sitting in front of them. If you're going to do this from a marketing perspective, your job is to share it in advance, as if there's no possibility of return. To start giving out your expertise before you ever get a client, to put it out there in a way that makes a whole lot happen. Matt Mullenweg, excuse me, is a really cool cat. Matt Mullenweg actually teaches all the time. He's out there teaching, and he often never charges for it, and he goes out and teaches. See, Matt Mullenweg teaches about a thing called WordPress. WordPress is a content management system platform that websites are built on. And we use it a lot in our business, but in his case, he goes out and teaches it a lot. And he teaches it as the expert in the industry. And why he's so good at it is because he actually built the software. So he built this software, but instead of holding on to it, he actually gives it away. So he makes this what's called open source. And you know what open source is? Anybody can have access to it. Anybody can take it. Anybody can do whatever they want with it. He gives it away, and then he gives his teaching away, and he teaches developers and other people how the industry is shaping, what they're doing on the core back engine to make this thing work. And he keeps giving it away and giving it away and giving it away, and he's worth $40 million today. And yet he never sold the software. And that's what we think. We go, well, he gives the software away, he does that. But what happened is the expert status that he created for himself had very important people coming back to him saying, can you do this for us? And so they said, can you build us a platform that is the best WordPress platform in the planet? He goes, okay, yeah, we'll do that. And now today, he's worth $40 million. It's kind of cool for giving it all away. And my encouragement to you is to give it away. Dan Kennedy said, if you create sufficient authority, all need for selling, and selling in this case, he actually means the chase factor, all need for selling and nearly all need for advertising and marketing ends. If you need to sell hard, you don't have sufficient authority. And expert status, when you create expertise that you share in advance, you propel yourself into that trusted authority status. So how can you give away your expertise for free in advance with no expectation of response? Think about that one. Now, strategy gets enabled through tactics. So if your strategy has become the logo for your business, then there's actual tactics, there's ways to do this. And in my research and in my study and in my own experimentation over the years, I have found 5 or 6 really powerful ways to do this, and I want to share them with you briefly now. I explore them more fully in the book, and Nade graciously gave you all a book, so thank you to Nade for giving you the book on your table. But let's look at some of those. So some of the tactics that support a you are the logo orientation. Jim Rohn said, if you are not willing to risk the usual, you will have to settle for the ordinary. And so what I am telling you today might actually push you beyond your comfort zone. But that's the only way you grow, so hopefully you can try this. The first tactic that I suggest you all get comfortable with is being willing to speak in a public way. And that doesn't mean you have to stand on a stage like this with 500 people in the room and do what I do. That's not what I'm suggesting, although that helps. But the ability to stand in front of a group of people and share your expertise and share your knowledge and teach them about security and teach them about privacy and teach them about things that will have direct and important influence on them is something that will always come back to serve you. Back in my menswear days, most of my competitors tried basic advertising, tried basically to sort of be in front of their audience by hoping that as they walked by in the shopping center or mall that people would come into the store. And I said, well, I don't want to wait that long. Remember, I want to have an unusual competitive advantage. I want people coming to me instead of me going and chasing them and me trying to drag them into the store. I want them lined up coming to see me. And so what I would do is I'd go out and speak in front of corporate audiences. And I'd speak about things that weren't always related to clothing. I'd speak about management and I'd speak about different things. But what happened is the more I spoke in front of audiences, the more people showed up in the stores. And there's a funny correlation that I didn't need to advertise. All I needed to do was teach. And when I taught, people showed up in the stores. When you teach and you provide expertise, people follow you. And I've already shown you that reason for that. Now, other people do it in different ways. So they might not speak in front of an audience. They might speak in front of a video camera. They might actually just turn the video camera on and teach people something and then post it to their website. If that's more comfortable to you, because some people find this more scary than dying. And wouldn't do this if their life depended on it, and couldn't do it if their life depended on it, even if you put a gun to their head. Some people, if you push them hard enough, they'll do it. But my encouragement to you is learn to just speak a little. Even if it's turning your video camera on your computer and just taping you saying, this is how you can help, this is how I can teach you something, this is how you can learn something. Be the spokesperson for your shred experience. So show them how your shred process works. But be the spokesperson. Don't have somebody come in and do it. You can do that. I mean, you do it all the time at home with your kids and you videotape interesting stuff, so do it yourself. Just show them you, though. Don't leave you out of the equation. The second thing that I have found to be extremely helpful and works is to write. To write something. Just write something that can go in a newsletter. I think one of the most powerful and important things you can do in your business today is create a newsletter. And not even an electronic one, a physical one that goes in the mail to people. Somehow we've believed that, if we put it in e-format, it's free or next to free. And somehow free is supposed to be valuable. I think we've got the equation wrong. When you send it out physically by mail, it has more value. People read it. People actually pick it up and open it up and give it value. When it's in an inbox, they spam it and they put it in their trash folder. It doesn't have value. But you can write. Now, the cool thing about writing is you don't even have to do it all the time. It just has to be your name on the bottom of it. But it has to be your voice. It has to come from you as if it were from you. Writing is a powerful way when you can't speak, when you can't be in front of people. Writing is a way to get your stuff in front of other people. Now, you don't have to be a New York Times author to write. You just have to write something that's valuable to your prospects. The next one is, I think you have to advertise. I think it's imperative to advertise. I think you have to do it strategically. You have to do it in a way that's ROI effective, that's direct response oriented. You can't afford to advertise in places that make no sense. Don't buy ads on the local TV station at an exorbitant price when none of your prospects are watching. But it's imperative that you advertise, that you have a full way of getting to your audience. But the key here is add your face. Add your face. Make sure you're present in your ads. Next, publicity. Publicity is another tactic that allows you to gain logo status. And publicity, all it is when somebody else talks about you. Publicity is when somebody else looks at you and talks about you and tells what you're doing. So, sometimes when those things come out in the local business journals where they allow you to tell your story, use those. Those are great tools. The power of publicity is never in the moment. The power of publicity is not in getting the exposure, it's taking that exposure and using it time and time again because you got exposed. Well, in the right way. Next, publish. And publish is a really interesting thing that's happening in our world today that has never been there's never been a more opportune time to do this. Robert Scoble is a former Microsoft employee. He's a blogger. He's a relatively well-known blogger that got hired by a company called Rackspace. Rackspace is the largest hosting company in the world. And Robert Scoble got hired by Rackspace to be their logo. So this wasn't actually the CEO of the company being the logo. They hired someone to be it. And Robert Scoble becomes the logo. And Robert Scoble creates for himself, for Rackspace, a media channel. Now, the world now has moved to you get to have your own media channel. YouTube has created a capacity for you actually to have your own channel where people can subscribe and get your updates on a regular basis if you do them. And what Scoble has done is created a media platform for Rackspace. Now, here's what's interesting, and here's where it gets intriguing. When Rackspace hired Robert Scoble in 2009, their share price was $5.98. Since that time, since 2009, their average price, actually yesterday or 2 days ago, was at $59 or $49, something up there, but it's significant. Their price has shot up dramatically. Now, many people, if you look at this, you go, well, that's, you can do that in any, there could be a whole bunch of other reasons. So somebody actually did research on this and studied it compared to other comparable companies, the same kind of companies doing the same kind of thing in the same kind of space at the exact same time. And so on the right-hand side, without Scoble, before Scoble showed up, they showed relative parity, meaning all these companies in the space maintained a relatively level set of share price comparatively. It's not they were all at $5.98, but comparatively the same. After Scoble showed up, everyone else stayed the same. That other group stayed the same, but Rackspace jumped incrementally. So subjectively, if you look at that, and it's one way of looking at it, you might assume that Scoble had an effect. And you might assume it's a pretty strong effect. And the only change was that Scoble showed up and became the visible, iconic marketing face of the business. The interesting thing is he doesn't market. He doesn't stand there and go, come look at Rackspace. He goes and looks at every other tech company in the world. He spends no time talking about Rackspace. Rackspace is just the company that supports him. But he does all these cool things. But the effect has been magnetic, it's been incredible, and they've grown exponentially as a result. Now, if you're going to pull this off, you have to have these final pieces of wisdom, I think, to help make this happen. First one is, and this is critical, because if you don't get this, you probably miss all the rest of it. And it's very hard to implement otherwise. You have to begin to understand that you're not in the shredding and destruction business. And most of you believe you are. Most of you think that's the business you're in. And if you're going to track differently and begin to become magnetic in your approach and magnetize yourself, you have to start thinking of yourself as being in the marketing business in which you market your shredding and destruction services. You have to change your mentality. And so if you think you're in the shredding and destruction business, you go to work every day and you do shredding related stuff. You do operations. You do, how do I make my shredders work more efficiently? How do I make them run more effectively? How do I make sure all my staff? And yet if you go the other direction, you have to start every day as a marketer, not as an operations person. And you have to be the most valuable and important task that you have to take on every day is to improve your magnetism. Every single day, when I wake up, the first thing I think of is what can I do today to create more magnetic effect in my business? How can I bring more people to me? Remember, that's the question we're asking. How do I do it? So you can't get up every day and go to the fires that happen every day and not... I shouldn't have said fires. Sorry. The stuff that your staff are complaining about, the truck issues, all that kind of stuff. The point is, you got to start every day going, how do I create one more level of magnetism to me in the business? Secondly, you cannot market to everybody. And here's the mistake so many companies are making. So many companies believe because they're in the shredding business, everybody should use them. And so you try and figure out how to market to everybody instead of how to market to somebody. Instead of marketing to somebody. Instead of trying to market to a wide audience in your city, choose a market, deliberately narrow your attention. Don't try and be the shred and destruction service company to the entire city. Try and become the shredding and destruction service company to all of the lawyers in town or to all of the accountants in town. Become their expert, because as an iconic personality marketer, you cannot effectively be that to everybody. It's only effective when you narrow your focus to a small audience. I would rather you be incredibly connected in a small town way to 500 people than to be not connected, not visible, and not present to 15,000. To your select niche then, your vertical or your target audience, then you must show up like no one else. You have to show up big to that market. You can't hide. If you're going to do this effectively, you gotta show up, but show up like no one else. And be a ubiquitous person in that marketplace. Be a ubiquitous presence to those people. Get to know them. Get to be on a first name basis. Get to be familiar to them. So what now? Where do we go from here? I hope that in this last hour, I have sufficiently caused you to expand your mind to go, is there another way we could be doing something? Is there another way I could stand out in the marketplace? Is there a way that I don't have to look like anyone else and create a magnetic, powerful effect in my marketplace, to my prospects, to my constituents? And I believe you can. So I want to help you some more. And first thing I want you to do is take time to read the book. It's deliberately short. It's not designed to be an epic novel. It's designed to just give you enough points to get started. And then if you go to youarethelogo.com/start, when you're done, and it's noted in the back of the book, I'm actually providing you 15 more steps to help get you going. Helpful to read the book first, then go to this and actually go through it. Actually process through it. It's free. There's no cost. I'm not charging you anything. You just have to go through it. And I'm going to give you some more steps to help you become more iconic in your role, more marketing in your role. Now is the time for you to get visible. I believe there's no better time than now. I believe there's no better opportunity than now. And I think you have the opportunity to live large and stand tall and magnetically attract people into your business, lining up willing to pay you what you're worth and the value you bring, and change the way you do business. And 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now, something cool will have happened in your business. I hope that as you go forward, you're willing to break out of your shell and do something magnificent. Thank you, folks. Continued success. Great luck. I appreciate you being here.